The city of Chicago is known to travelers for its diverse cuisine, culture, and communities. But those of us who call it home know there's a whole world outside the city limits. With nearly 10 million residents across 8 counties, the country's third largest metro area is full of great places to live, eat, work, and play. As a real estate agent serving the suburbs, I have the privilege every day to get to know the people and places that make this sweet home Chicagoland. What's up, Chicagoland? I am Chris Grano, and welcome to Sweet Home Chicagoland, the podcast where we talk to the people that make the Chicago suburbs a great place to live. So if you followed us last year, you know that we started Sweet Home Chicagoland as a video series. And then, of course, like lots of businesses, we were affected by the pandemic, right? So we are relaunching, rebranding as a podcast. And as soon as life gets back to a little bit more fun out there, we'll bring the video back in. So today is our very first episode as in our podcast format. And I'm really excited to invite on a great friend of the podcast, a great local Chicagoland resident, Dr. Matt Milonas of Milonas Family Chiropractic. Matt, thank you so much for joining me.
Chris, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So, I want to let the people get to know you, get to know a little bit about your practice, and,
Sure.
Let them know how they can get a hold of you if they're in need, because I think a lot of people out there are in need of great chiropractic care, and maybe they just don't know it.
Yeah.
So, right. So
yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit first. Tell me about your connection to Chicagoland. Did you grow up here? Are you from this area?
So I was born in Chicago in 1974. Wow, that's a long time ago, right? In 1974, my dad was born and raised in Chicago on the South Side. His father actually immigrated from the Greek island of Samos, and he with his 2 brothers, and they all became entrepreneurial business guys. My grandfather being in the restaurant business. So a Greek diner of all places on the South Side of Chicago. And so my dad was born and raised here. My mom is actually from Queens, New York City. And she came to go to school at Northwestern, where she met my dad, and she has stayed ever since. So I was born in Chicago, lived in a bunch of different houses. But I primarily tell people that I was born and raised in Wheaton, Illinois, which would obviously be the western suburbs. And then after graduating high school, I went to University of Illinois, so stayed in Illinois, and then came back and started a practice after going to school in Lombard for chiropractic school. Started a practice in Naperville, where I've been living and working for since 2001. So yeah, the west suburbs.
Yeah, it's all about the suburbs. That's what that's what the podcast is all about. We got to think outside the city limits, right? So
that's right. We love our city. We love the city of Chicago, but the suburbs are something special. A lot of great things happen in the suburbs.
That's right. It's a great place to live and grow a family. And so you've been practicing here for a long time, and your wife is also a chiropractor as well.
Yeah, she is. So to take a really long story and make it really longer, Jessy was born and raised in the Quad Cities of Iowa, and graduated from Palmer Chiropractic College, which is also in the Quad Cities. So both of us kind of went to school where we were raised. Jessy followed her sister here to the west suburbs because just wanted to have more of a life in the Chicagoland area. And I met her through a group of young chiropractors that would meet monthly to just discuss growth and opportunity and marketing and whatnot. And I met her, and then I went into full-on stalker mode. And so our first date, I thought was a date. She thought it was a business lunch. And so it became very awkward when I realized that we were on a business lunch and not more of the romantic side, which I had hoped for. But I put on the charm, and I stalked, and I did what I had to do. And we were married in 2006. We actually merged our practices in 2008, right before our oldest was born. We were practicing just a couple of miles apart. It didn't make sense to have 2. And here we are all these years later. We have two young, wonderful, amazing daughters, and we still practice together. So it's kind of a unique setup, and we really love it. And I think what makes us unique is that people will call, and believe it or not, as much as it hurts my feelings, people get excited that they have the opportunity to be adjusted by a male or a female. And of course, Jessy's hours at the clinic tend to be some of the busiest because because people love Jessy. So, but
awesome.
but it works, and it allows us to offer a lot of different things. So, as you know,
that's very cool. Yeah. So your charm worked. It turned out okay. The business lunch turned out good.
It did.
So tell people, now, full disclosure, I've known you for a long time, and my wife actually, as you know, her father is a chiropractor. So I've been receiving chiropractic care for a long time, and so is she. And so some people are very familiar with chiropractic care, and some people just really don't know much about it. I think if I were to guess from the outside looking in, I think probably the average person thinks, well, that's where I go if my back hurts. And certainly that's part of it, right? But I know, and you know, that it's a lot more. Can you give us kind of the chiropractic 101, why it's good for the body?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, if you don't mind, I'll just take a second and tell you that this 101 is the exact reason that I became a chiropractor. So I'm from a family of people in the business world. My dad is in estate planning and insurance, and my brother followed his footsteps, and another one in real estate. But I just always had this heart for wanting to help people through the medical world. And for growing up, always thought I'd be a surgeon. I spent a lot of time in the emergency room and the doctor's offices with injuries and sports related stuff. But it was when I was 19 years old and I was away at college when I had kind of an unexpected injury to my knee that led to another thing, and led to just the cycle of medications, therapies, on and on, which are fine for some people. It never worked for me, and nothing helped. And I finally ended up going under the knife for some experimental surgeries so that they could kind of even take a look at what was going on. And that left me in a place where I was 20 years old, down at University of Illinois, where I had pretty much kind of gotten to the place where I couldn't walk very well. And it all started with just twisting my knee. But one thing led to another, and I was taking a lot of medications, which were causing me a lot of health concerns, on top of just trying to fix the knee problem. And one day I just kind of had talked to my dad, and he said, I want you to come see a chiropractor. And I always throw this out there because it really does bond people. But the idea is that I said to my dad, I am not going to go to some quack who had his office next to the discount tobacco liquor store. And the truth is, if you drive around, I mean, we're in all the strip malls, and you know what I mean? And so that's what I thought. I didn't know that there was value added. Now, I can remember being a young child, and I have memories of being at the chiropractor's office watching my mother and father get adjusted, but nobody ever bothered to tell them to take a look at me. Because, of course, chiropractic is, the theory is like, oh, well, we're supposed to just, if you don't have back pain, you don't need them. If you have neck pain, you don't need them. And then all the other stereotypes that come along. I still to this day wonder if I would have gone through all of the hell and injury and pain that I went through if I had actually had someone look at me. And let me explain the 101 now. I actually showed up at that chiropractor's office, and I was furious. I was not happy. I was in a lot of pain. I was on a lot of meds. And this man had the audacity to tell me that there was actually nothing wrong with me. And I was like, can you not look at me and see that there's something wrong with me? I've been to multiple surgeons and all this stuff. And but what he was trying to tell me was that there was nothing wrong with me, but that what was in me that drives our healing wasn't actually being expressed to its fullest potential. I wasn't healing simply because I was blocking the healing. There was something blocking my healing. And I think everybody agrees that there's no magic amount of drugs that will make someone better. It's not like you have a heart problem and then when you take 7 medications, your heart's fine. Medications are same things that that really, once you're there, they kind of tend to be something you're going to need your whole life. But there's also this idea that maybe there's a reason you're not healing. Maybe there's a reason you keep looking for healing and you're not looking inside. You're using all kinds of imaging and testing. Well, this is what he said. And he looked at me and he literally said, your brain knows exactly what needs to happen for you to be healthy and strong for the entire of your life. You're not experiencing that right now. And I said, no, Sherlock, I feel terrible. And he went and proceeded to do some testing that actually looked at the one system that nobody ever looked at for me, my central nerve system. Nobody ever evaluated whether my spinal cord and my nerves were actually transmitting information between my brain and the cells of my body, so that I was actually experiencing the fullest life that was given to us by God through our brain and our spinal cord and our nerves. Now that's the 101. So what he basically was doing was evaluating whether or not I had the ability to even heal to the level that I wanted to heal. And through his testing and his imaging, he found that I was not able to, simply because of one reason. My spine, which we all have one, it's made up of 24 movable segments, was locked, out of alignment, beat up, backwards, all jacked up from years of sports and all that stuff, where actually the nerves were being compressed as they were trying to transmit that life from my brain to my body. They were compressed by the misalignment of the spinal bones. And this was stopping the message of healing that my brain was trying to communicate to my body. And over a course of adjustments and therapies, over the course of a few months, and actually in my case, it was a little over a year, maybe 2 years, before I was actually to look in the mirror and say, I am fully healthy and healing right now. And it was because someone had enough to tell me this philosophy that was different than the one that I wanted to spend my life doing, but the one that I was living on a daily basis, that this 101 philosophy of chiropractic made such a difference in my life that I decided that I wanted to do this for the rest of my life.
I think, I mean, first of all, that's amazing, amazing testimony of how it personally affected you. You know, the thing that always made so much sense once I finally heard the same message that you're talking about that I heard from chiropractors in my youth, it clicked, because I thought, okay, now, you know, and there's nothing wrong with different medical approaches. And we all know that surgeries for various systems of the body are sometimes necessary, and medications can help. Medications can help in certain circumstances. But your point is right. It's not that, you know, like when I have a headache, I always tell people this when they ask about chiropractic. I say, well, when I have a headache, it's not that my body is lacking ibuprofen. You know, like the ibuprofen will make the headache go away, but for a little while. But what's the cause of the headache?
Right.
And and people don't seem to ask that question very often. You know.
No, we really, in America, especially, we live in a world where we're very reactive. So we're always good about thinking that what we're doing is getting to the root cause, but we're not going enough layers deep. And so our traditional way of taking care of ourselves is to get rid of whatever is bothering us as fast as we can. And it's not, I don't know that it's just any different than the human condition. I mean, it's the same, I think, whether it's real estate or whatever. I mean, this instant gratification that we want sometimes blocks us from taking a step back and just looking at the layers that need to be handled to do the right thing. I mean, just even this morning, I had a wonderful conversation with an electrician, and I explained chiropractic using his terms. It was very, very simple. If my outlet doesn't work, you know, can you test it? And he said, yes. And I said, well, what happens if you find that there's not enough electricity coming to the outlet? I said, you can change out the outlet to another outlet. He said that wouldn't work, because that new outlet would probably also test that there's not enough electricity. What I need to do is I need to look at the wiring to find out what's going on in the wiring that outlet's not working correctly. And I said, bam, there you have it. That's exactly what we do in chiropractic. So if your heart's not where it needs to be, or you're not having the healthiest heart, we also need to look at the wiring to the heart, which is the spinal nerves that come out of the upper back and lower neck. If it's a back problem, we can adjust the muscles all we want. But if we're not looking at the nerves that control those muscles to make sure they're right, then we're lacking. And so, you know, whether it's that or it's plumbing or whatever, the trades are great ways of explaining chiropractic to people. Or my favorite in the suburbs, because everyone has one, is that right in the spring when we hook up our garden hoses and go to water, and there's that annoying kink in the hose.
Right.
And, like, nobody's going to go, oh, there's a kink in the hose, let me get a new nozzle.
Right. Right.
Like, it's like you remove the kink. And that's exactly what chiropractic is. And that's our philosophy. We have what we need to heal, and we're likely doing what we need to heal. And for the most part, I mean, there's probably people that's lifestyle need to change, but like, we just need to let it flow.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It right. When you use some of those analogies, it really becomes clear. And I think people finally just have to look at it a different way. Now, I know that chiropractic is really, I mean, first of all, we know it's for everybody, right? But I know a lot of athletes that use chiropractic care, and it coordinates from what I've seen, with massage therapy and a lot of these different techniques to keep athletes in prime condition. Have you worked on some local, even just amateur athletes? And what are some of the common injuries that you see and ways to help with that?
Yeah. So I think number one, it goes back to this idea, kind of like my story, is the importance of the spine and nerve system needs to be from the day we're born. I mean, it's not like we wait until we're an 8-year-old that, got crunched at playing football that we should look at this thing. I mean, our nerve system is actually required for us to grow old and healthy. And our spine does the protecting, like I said. And so we need to be looking at these things all the time. But athletes take it to a whole other level. I mean, you think about the violence of sports right now, right? You think about contact sports, you think about all the things we do. And then, you go back to when I was just getting into sports. I mean, it's a different world. These kids play 5 days a week. I played once a week, right? They're traveling around the country to play teams that, are in the South or in the West. Like, it's just ridiculous, the amount of effort and time being put into athletics. And my thought is this: if I'm going to perform at my highest level, if I want my body to participate at the highest level, then my brain needs to tell the muscles and the tissues how to do its job at the highest level. In 2012, Jessy and I had the opportunity to travel with the U.S. Olympic teams to London. And while we weren't their specific chiropractors, hands-on for the wrestling and judo teams, one of the things I recognized was that through technology, when we were there, these are the best athletes in the world. So what separates the gold medalist from the silver medalist are the smallest fractions, the smallest little bit. I mean, you ask a lot of these athletes, are you more talented than that person is from gold medal to silver medal? And the answer is a lot, unless you're like a Michael Phelps, just strange, outlier. Most of these people will say they're just as talented. And the thing that separates it is speed, recoverability, how fast I can react. And when you have a properly functioning nerve system, you're going to react faster, you're going to heal faster, you're going to recover faster because your body's playing full out just the way you want to play. And what we noticed that year was that we actually won the most gold medals as a wrestling and judo team that had ever been won by the United States. And the one thing that had changed was taking care of these athletes through getting ready for the Olympics and during the Olympics. So you take that now down to local athletes. And yes, we've worked with lots of wonderful high school football players and golfers and volleyball, kids that have gone on to great college careers, or kids that have just put everything they've had into the moment. And one of the things we know is that we have reduced injury, greater recovery, and way better performance. And it is such a blessing to be able to lay hands on somebody who's not writhing in pain, but instead wants that boost to be the best that they can be and just wants their body function at a high level. And I just think that's what makes athletics so amazing when it comes with chiropractic.
Yeah, and I think it's a great testimonial to your industry, to your what you practice, because I think everybody recognizes that nobody probably is more in tune with their body than athletes, of any level. Certainly the level you spoke of, the Olympics and pro athletes. And so if these people are taking chiropractic as a part of their journey, a part of keeping themselves in good health to be able to perform at that level, then clearly that can be applied to anybody. So I appreciate you touching on that. So I wanted to ask you about a specific injury that you had that really has driven a lot of your testimony over the last couple of years from what I've seen. And so for those of you guys who don't know, Dr. Matt hosts a podcast called the Pain Sucks Podcast, and wrote a book called Pain Sucks. And that, correct me if I'm wrong, was driven out of your personal experience with your injury. Would you talk about that?
Yeah, it was 1000% driven out of my need to fix myself. I tell people all the time, I had zero intention of writing a book or hosting a podcast to get information out to people. All I really wanted to do was find out what was going to work for me. So in 2015, on January 10th of 2015, I woke up And I've had just excruciating, the worst pain I've ever felt in my life in my left leg, but it felt like my left leg had been detached from my body. And it turns out through imaging and testing and some other stuff, I had actually sequestered my L5-S1 disc. And so a couple things. One, sequestered means the worst level of herniation that you can have in your disc. It's where not only does the disc come out like in a herniation, but it actually explodes and it dies, and it is like kind of lodged in all the little crevices and holes of your spinal column. And that's what happened to me. So two things happened in that moment. One, I knew life would never be the same, because to be a chiropractor, you have to be extremely physical. And I actually didn't realize on January 10th that what was going to happen was that I was about to basically lay in bed for the next 4 months and be about as unproductive as a family member, a husband, and a father, and to society that I could be. And that's crushing. And people that are listening to this, Chris, right now, who have had a herniated disc and deal with that level of pain, they know the level of depression and emotional stuff that comes along with that. I had been a chiropractor for 15 years and dealt with this in other people, but I had never had the empathy that I was able to now have, because I was feeling what it was like. The level of pain from a disc problem is something that people can't even describe to another person. It is impossible. And the reason I know that is because even my colleagues will call me and say, I need help because I also now herniated my disc. And oh my God, I just never could have imagined that someone would be in this much pain. So it's like, it's one of those indescribable. It's like asking a mom to, what's it like to give birth, right? Like,
Right.
To her husband or to like another male. Like, unless you've given birth, you don't know, right? So I didn't realize the amount of destruction that a herniated disc was going to do to my life, our finances, our business, my marriage, me as a dad to 2 young girls. It was destroying, and it was disheartening. But there was a part of me that still understood the principle of chiropractic, that just like a paper cut would heal, this eventually had to heal. Now, I did get to the point where I took some medicines. I needed them. I actually went for a cortisone shot. I needed it. I consulted with surgeons who wouldn't do it, and I praised the Lord that they wouldn't. But mostly inside, the journey I went on was like, okay, God, why did this happen? And what can I do to get myself back? And what I discovered led me to what we do with Pain Sucks. And that is this: the number one thing we spend money on in the United States of America when it comes to health is back pain. And the number one thing that we handle wrong, even though we spend all that money, is back pain, because nobody's getting better. Because we're just basically leaving people in a place where it's like you have to live with it. And I didn't want to be a part of that. I wanted to be the guy that got better. I wanted to be the guy that discovered something in myself that I could fully heal and go back to life. And it was a journey, man. It was everything from working with fellow chiropractors to physical therapists to massage therapists to meditation to spirituality to learning how to handle anger, emotions, learning how to deal with past deep-seated memories, and all kinds of stuff that I had to learn how to go through, along with just the things that we do every single day: anti-inflammatory ways of eating, supplementation, exercise. Like, what was I capable of? What was I not capable of? And so fast forward about 4 or 5 years later, I decided that even though I kept hearing the call, like, you've got to tell the world about this, I was working on it with people in my clinic. I was like slipping them pieces of information and, hey, try this and do that. And people were healing, but it was just not even that long ago, maybe a year ago, that I felt like I just need to sit down and I need to start telling people about this. And as I started doing that, people from around the world started calling, and they started Facebook messaging. Hey, I saw what you're talking about and I need this. And one of the things I realized, I hadn't put it all in one place. And so I attempted to put it all on paper, and it was terrible. But by the grace of God, I knew your sister. And with her amazing writing skills, Michelle was able to help me compile this thing into a simple ebook that literally to this day, like, people are still, I get a daily email, people buying it and saying, thank you. I never would have ever thought like this. I never would have allowed my mind to go like this. So if I challenge people to go look at herniated disc or chronic back pain right now, or things like that, the things that are going to pop up are all about exercises. What can I be doing? What kind of exercise? And I realized that through my own pain, I discovered that the process of healing has to come from a different place than jumping into exercises. And so we talk about the three foundations of healing, which is handle inflammation, restore micromotion, and have patience. And I don't mean patience, IENTS, IENCE. Be patient. Let it go. Like, let it handle itself. Just yesterday, someone asked me why they weren't healing yet. They had hurt themselves 2 weeks ago. And I said, because you consistently think that throwing your back out to this level is like a simple sprained ankle, that in 72 hours of some ice and some rest, you'll be good. You literally destroyed ligaments, soft tissues. You blew things apart. You might have affected blood flow. You could have damaged nerve problems. Like, it's going to take a while, but God, by his grace and the philosophy that we believe in, made our bodies to heal. And so what we've been able to do with Pain Sucks book and Pain Sucks podcast is bring all these experts together and start compiling a different list of how people get better. And it's just been amazing. And now it's branching into even other bigger things as we try to take over the world of this idea of back injury.
That's amazing. Again, amazing testimony. And to me, it's more powerful made, by your personal experience. I mean, it's one thing to have somebody tell you something, but to have actually lived it and then share it with another. I mean, that's much more powerful. Matt, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast. I want to share with everybody how they can get a hold of you. So first, tell them where they can find the book and the podcast.
Okay, so the podcast is, there's two ways for the podcast. You can go to the, it's called Pain Sucks YouTube channel. That's it. And you can watch it. Or if you're like me and you like to consume content a little bit faster, you go to iTunes and it's called the Pain Sucks podcast, where you can listen a little bit quicker. Those are the two places to get kind of the free resources. If people go to Fix Your Disc Pain, that's my handle on Instagram. And also Fix Your Disc Pain is the Facebook page. On there are lots of free things that they can grab. There's actually introductory courses on inflammation and some other ways to start to interact with me. And of course, I'm always one of those people that I'm just approachable. So my email is just matt@milonaschiropractic.com, and try to get back to as many people within 24 hours as I can and get people back on track. So those are the ways.
And we're going to we'll put all the links, in the below on the YouTube channel and on the podcast as well.
Cool.
And you're still practicing locally. So can people reach out to you and potentially have you work on them as well?
Yeah, of course. So the best way to do that again is just the matt@milonaschiropractic.com. And right now, so if they want to just go ahead and put in the subject line, the subject line, Sweet Home Chicagoland, then what we're doing right now is we're doing a full evaluation, first treatment, all that kind of stuff for just $100, which is $600-700 cheaper than normal.
Yeah.
So they can come in and spend some time with me, and we'll chat and we'll get to know each other, and we'll get them back on the path towards healing. So if they want to put that in the subject line, even though this is like February where we're talking, Chris, we're going to go ahead on that ends at the end of this month, but for your listeners, we'll go ahead and extend that. So
that's wonderful. Thank you for doing that. That's a great value for sure. I can tell you, for anyone listening out there, absolutely take advantage of that.
Cool.
Matt, thank you so much for your time. We'll see you around, and I look forward to hearing from some good stories for people who have heard good news today and put it into action by getting a hold of you. I want to thank everybody for joining me here on Sweet Home Chicagoland. Be sure to find us on all the different platforms that we're on, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. If you just go to sweethomechicagoland.com, it'll pull up the YouTube channel. Everybody have a great week, and remember, think outside the city limits.